Do the Houston Texans have to make the playoffs for this season to be considered a success? Welcome into the channel. I'm Cody Stoots. Let's talk some Texans. Are the playoffs a necessary element for this season to be considered a success? Go ahead and answer down in the comment section down below. On your way down there, throw me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. The playoffs on the horizon. Win the next two games, and the Houston Texans will be in the playoffs. But do you have to make the playoffs for this season to be a successful season? Ultimately, I felt like going into the year, there were two things that we had to figure out about the Houston Texans. We had to figure out this season if they had a quarterback of the future and if DeMeco Ryans was any good as a head coach. Let's start with the quarterback. Yes. Oh, my goodness, yes. Do they have a quarterback? They have one of the best rookie quarterbacks that has played in recent memory. CJ Stroud, I know the concussions knocked him out for the past couple of games, but Stroud has been fantastic. He has taken this team and this organization and thrust it into the conversation that we're in now. He looks every bit the part of a franchise quarterback. The growth within the season, sometimes week to week, has been fantastic to watch. Big check mark on that element of the season going into it and finding out if the Texans have the makings of or already have a franchise quarterback. I feel like we all find ourselves in the latter category, that they already have a franchise quarterback, and now they're trying to figure out how to put things around him to maximize those first few seasons as a franchise QB. The other must find out about this season was DeMeco Ryans as the head coach. What was he going to bring to the table? How was he going to operate? Were there going to be moments where we could be highly critical of him, and would he make those mistakes again? Was he going to be able to string and pull every last bit out of this team on a week-in, week-out basis? Because as good as the improvement was in adding talent to this team and some other coaches, and just we knew there was going to be a higher floor for this team, the ceiling was a big unknown, and a lot of that was going to be on the shoulders of what DeMeco Ryans could put together as a head coach. And I feel like there are definitely some moments over the course of the season where DeMeco Ryans is wringing out every last bit of juice that this team has to put together a win or stick around in some games. They're way ahead of what even some of the wildest predictions were for this season from a win-loss standpoint. But some of those wins look really good. Some of the losses don't look as good, but I look around at some of the other head coaches around the National Football League, and even though DeMeco Ryans is a defensive-minded coach, I look around even at some of these offensive-minded guys, and I'm happy that DeMeco Ryans is the head coach for the Texans, and the Texans should feel the same way. So you could reasonably say that by figuring out that the Texans have a franchise quarterback, by giving a positive review of the potential of DeMeco Ryans, that this season is a success. It's a success because of just those two things. But I feel like you can add on to that conversation, because beyond finding out about CJ Stroud and DeMeco Ryans, there was more that you needed from this season. You had to go in and you had to find some pillars or some building blocks for this organization. So obviously CJ Stroud and DeMeco Ryans, they are the foundation of everything that you're going to build up from. But the pillars and the building blocks for this Texans team, it was going to be important to figure out how many of those you could find throughout the course of this season. Obviously, we knew Laramie Tunsil was going to be sticking around with the big contract. He's one of the pillars or building blocks for this organization along that offensive line. We don't know about Titus Howard because the injuries to the team forced him to play out of position. So we don't know one of the most highly compensated right tackles will look like playing right tackle on this new deal, because he didn't do it for this team. So it's not him, even though he signed to a long-term contract. Derek Stingley's been pretty impressive when he's been on the field. I understand the injury sapped him of a potentially full season, but he's been pretty darn good when he has been on the field. And I wouldn't say that he's a pillar for this team just yet, but he is certainly a big building block that you could put together for this Texans organization. I will say this next player on defense is a pillar, and that's Will Anderson Jr. I know the sack numbers aren't as high as most people would have liked. He's missed a couple of games because of an injury as well, but he is as advertised when you talk about what he brings to the table from the defensive end position. He is a pillar for this team, and he basically needed to be a pillar for this team when you think about the investment that the Texans put together to go out there and get him and bring him in addition to C.J. Stroud. He needed to be a pillar, and he has been a pillar for this team. And one more, I wouldn't call him a pillar, but he's certainly a big building block for this team. Nico Collins, finding out about him, and I know he's only got 1 year left on his contract, but finding out about him, getting him as a 1,000-yard receiver, him developing into a total wide receiver for this team, that was a big element of this as well. So, again, my charge for the Texans was find out about C.J. Stroud, check, that's a big positive. Find out about D'Amico Ryans, check, that's a positive. And then go about finding some pillars or building blocks. They've put together a few of those as well. It's not probably as many as we all would have liked for this team. And in fact, some of those key players that are pillars or building blocks in season, we don't know if they're going to be around next year. A guy like Dalton Schultz, he's a free agent at the end of the year. A guy like Devin Singletary, a guy like Sheldon Rankins. Some of these guys may not be here at the end of the season and going into next year, so it's hard to call them a for sure pillar long-term or a big building block for where this team wants to go. So again, with the questions about D'Amico Ryans, the pillars and building blocks, it might already be a successful season. By the way, if you think there's a pillar or a building block that I missed for this team, get in the comment section down below and let me know. Another element about this year that you needed to find out about was what type of general manager is exactly Nick Caserio going to turn into? Because the first couple of years, there was a lot of chaos. He was super unimpressive with free agency. I didn't love a lot of his moves. There wasn't really a lot to write home about when it came to Nick Caserio. Some of his draft picks have been very meh up to this point, but Caserio turned in a really impressive offseason, perhaps with a little bit of influence of D'Amico Ryans, but nobody does anything alone in the National Football League anymore. Everybody has some help, but Caserio put together a really nice situation, drastically increased the talent level of this team, and helped the floor of the situation get a lot better as well. You think about having a guy like George Fant in the fold for when injuries struck. Jarrett Patterson is a late-round draft pick to have him fill in at the center spot until he got hurt. That was a big thumbs up for Nick Caserio. And those are just some of the smaller things that he's done. Think about some of the big moves. We talked about getting Dalton Schultz, Sheldon Rankins, two guys like that have been really important players. And then some of the draft picks that Caserio's made over the past couple of years have started to come into their own. Nico Collins, Derek Stingley when he's been healthy on the field, and obviously the big investment of Will Anderson Jr. has paid off. So you start to find out a little bit more about Nick Caserio. He starts to have some more impressive elements to his resume when it's been important for him to have super impressive elements of his resume. It's not perfect. Look, Kenyon Green, that's still a rough situation. And some of the other draft picks have not panned out. Some free agents have not panned out, but it's a rough spot here. Oh, as I talk about Nick Caserio, I forgot about a pillar for this team. Hello, Tank Dell. Snatching Tank Dell up in the third round. He's a pillar for this team. He's injured, so I left him off of my pillar conversation a moment ago. But my goodness, Tank Dell is absolutely a pillar for this team. But again, that's another positive for Caserio, another feather in his cap. He's improved his standing. There's still questions about what he can bring to the table. And with a bunch of money in free agency, what is he going to do? How is he going to do it? How's he going to approach contract extension with players who are playing really well this year, set to be free agents, like Jonathan Renard, Dalton Schultz, Sheldon Rankins? There's still a lot to learn about Nick Caserio, but you got a improved resume from Nick Caserio. And again, another important piece to this season that you could say it is already a success. So ultimately, do you have to get to the playoffs to be successful for the Texans? I say yes and no. Oh, Cody, what are you doing? You're cheating on your own answer to the question. Well, here's what I would say. Expectations change. It's one of the beautiful things about human beings. Any expectation you have in life for just about anything, it can change at a moment's notice. My expectation for these final 2 weeks is the Houston Texans find themselves in the playoffs. If they don't, that would be a disappointing end to the season, and it would be unsuccessful from where the expectations sit now. From where the expectations were in April when the draft occurred, in July when training camp started, in August when training camp was wrapping up and the preseason was wrapping up, in week 4 when the team is clawed back to a couple of victories. Those expectations, just success, 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 success. Where they are right now, it would be unsuccessful if they did not make the playoffs. When you factor in that CJ Stroud, he gets back, they're going to have the better quarterback in the last 2 matchups. They've got the better head coach. Maybe in at least one of those matchups, maybe both those matchups. And if they don't have the better head coach, he's got to coach them up to beat those 2 guys that people think maybe are better than him as well. So, yes, the season is already successful, but no, it won't be successful if you don't make the playoffs. A little yes and no. Is that a cop-out? I don't feel like it is a cop-out because there's different layers and levels to this season and important things that have happened that you could say success, 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 success. And then I would say right now, a failure if you don't make the playoffs with the situation that you're in as the Texans. What say you? Hit the comment section. Let me know. Did you hate the cop-out there at the end? Is it an M. Night Shyamalan's twist to my own question to this YouTube video that you didn't like? Throw me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All right, so maybe I copped out a little bit on my answer. All right, let me give you something here. Let me give you some good info on my friends at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the best way to play fantasy. Their Pick'em format is unmatched when it comes to fantasy. You're just taking stat predictions, higher, lower on passing yards, rushing yards, tackles, sacks, things like that. You're putting those predictions together, anywhere from 2 to 5 predictions, and you could 20 times your entry in just a single game. You can mix and match sports as well. They even have season-long pick'ems for football. I'm monitoring some of those. I'm very close to putting together some wins in season-long pick'em. And for viewing my YouTube, I'm going to give you the offer here. 2 times your first deposit with my promo code Stoots. 2 times your first deposit up to $100 with my promo code Stoots, STOOTS. Okay, you get 2 times your first deposit up to $100. That means you put in 100, you get 200 to play with. You put in 50, you get 100 to play with. You look at my buddy Matt, you put in $10, you play with 20, and then Matt just sends me winners every week. He's like, hey, look, I won this one. Hey, look, I won this one. And I'm like, hey, buddy, can you send me some of those? I'd like to put some winners in like you. We put in a Texans entry each week with the Texans game. We've hit twice this season on 20-1 entries. It's paid for my entries over the course of the season. You can do the same for you. And hey, did the holiday season hit the wallet a little bit? Let Underdog Fantasy help. The link in the description down below will autofill the code for you. And if it doesn't autofill, remember it's STOOTS at UnderdogFantasy.com for your first time deposit bonus of a 2-time match up to $100. Please support Underdog Fantasy and have some fun playing them. They're a great supporter here of the channel as well. And you're a great supporter if you've watched to this point. If you didn't watch to this point, you're still a great supporter for checking it out. But you're a really great supporter for watching to this point. Hope you enjoyed the video. Give me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate you taking the time to watch it. So much more fun stuff coming here in the playoff push on the YouTube channel. You don't want to miss it. So don't miss it by subscribing, hit the little bell, have notifications when new stuff posts on the channel as well. Thanks for watching the video. Can't wait till we talk Texans again soon.